Hi, everyone. At least it can't get any worse than this. Those were the last words that I said the day that everything changed. I remember leaving my last client. I was exhausted and burned out. As I pulled in the driveway and finished just one more call, my 9-year-old daughter came out frantic, saying, "Come quick, something's wrong with Dad." I walked in the door and discovered my husband had unexpectedly passed away. Things got much worse. In a moment, I found myself a widowed mother of 4 young kids running 2 businesses that weren't ready for me to step away. I was 315 pounds, diagnosed with diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, and several other health conditions. That same day, my mom was diagnosed with lung cancer. Rob's death was a huge wake-up call for me. Suddenly, I was single. My own health was in its worst place ever. My business wasn't ready for me to navigate the process. The next several days, or months actually, resulted in a series of additional challenges. Everything seemed to be falling apart. Everything seemed to be uncertain. So what did I do? I intentionally applied the same transformational change process that I've been teaching thousands of leaders as I help them navigate critical change in uncertain times, much like what we're living today. Despite being in the middle of uncertainty and crisis, I chose joy in every situation. I'm happy to say that in less than 18 months, my life completely transformed. I lost over 100 pounds, went off all my meds, and now feel better than I did in my 20s. My relationships with my kids are better, and I'm spending time doing what I love, which right now is helping a lot of business leaders navigate critical transitions of our uncertain times that we're living in. So if I can do it, you can do it too. If you're feeling unsure, overwhelmed, or stuck in any area of your life, or you're feeling paralyzed and unsure of how to navigate our new reality, I'm here to provide you with some simple keys and resources that'll give you hope, help you get unstuck, and successfully navigate these uncertain times. We're in the middle of uncertain times, but what if everything you're going through right now is preparing you for a dream that you can't even imagine? I'm Michelle Bonahoom, the founder of Vision One High Performance Group and the We Are Unstoppable movement. I've spent my career asking that very question of hundreds of companies and leaders as I help them navigate critical change. It could be helping them to figure out how they're going to make it through this current economic crisis. It could be helping them to figure out how they're going to navigate their relationships, or it could be helping them to figure out how to transition to the next generation of leadership. Regardless of what change you're facing today, it requires getting started, embracing conflict, and seeking big change. Today, I'm going to talk to you about one of the 7 keys to becoming unstoppable, regardless of your circumstances. This key is principles. Principles are the mindsets that serve as the foundation of your thinking, your emotions, your beliefs, your values, even your actions and your skills. What if the greatest thing that's standing in your way of your transformation or making it through this challenging time is actually you? I'm here to tell you that it is. The mindsets that shape your current reality and your future are in your control. So don't wait to believe it when you see it. Rather, believe it and you will see it. Over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to help you understand the power of your mind. I'm going to walk you through ways to recognize what mindsets might be skewed and what's maybe keeping you stuck. And then finally, I'm going to present to you some practical and simple tools and resources that can help you in getting unstuck. I believe that the absolute biggest way to overcome uncertain and challenging times is to intentionally change the way we think. It's the most powerful weapon that you have. Your brain is made up of over 1 billion nerve cells that contain your thoughts and your memories, and they branch off into trees mirroring the right and the left side, and they work in perfect synergy together. Within that brain, your mind processes 12 to 15,000 thoughts per day. Many of these thoughts are subconscious and they're habitual, and we don't even know they're happening. And as you experience each new experience, so for example, as you're experiencing these uncertain times, those decisions are getting filtered through your value judgments. And through that, your emotions are rising up, and you're forming your perceptions of reality, you're forming your attitudes, you're forming your worldview and your self-view. That is what guides our actions, that's what guides our behaviors, and then from that, that's how our strengths and our skills are reinforced. And so it doesn't do any good to start with new behaviors or to try to build new strengths in this time of uncertainty or any time, because it starts with how we think. But the problem is, because most of our thought patterns are subconscious, we don't even recognize them. And so we allow our subconscious mind to drive our actions. The beauty is that you have an opportunity to be able to take control of your mind. That's the one thing you actually can control, is your mind. And so we're going to talk about how to do that today. But before we do, I just want to start and talk a little bit about how humans are wired. This shows Maslow's hierarchy. Maslow is a psychologist. He learned that humans have a hierarchy of needs. In order for us to be able to essentially leave a legacy and be the best versions of ourselves, we need to make sure that that we have our lower level needs met. And so first of all, we need to make sure that our psychological, physiological, and safety needs are met. So right now in these uncertain times, there's a lot of people that don't know how they're going to have provision, and they don't know how they're going to be safe. And so it's very difficult to expect them to solve problems and to be able to even think about vision and leaving a legacy, because they don't even have those basic needs met. Once those are met, we need to be able to have connection and community, and to be able to have impact and make impact. And so we cannot, once again, leave a legacy unless we have some of those needs met as well. And so it's important during these times and any uncertain time to be thinking about how are we making sure that these needs are met. But the reality is a lot of these needs are a matter of our perspective, right? So my ability to have provision is very much tied to my mindset around provision. My ability to be able to have safety or to have community with others is really surrounded around the ability and the right mindset and framework around that. And so a lot of the work that I've been doing with businesses over the last few weeks is working with them to help their workforce be able to look at and understand where is their provision, where is their safety, where is their love and belonging, so that they can actually still be productive and they can actually still have vision and think about leaving a legacy. Because if we're not in that place of feeling as if we're our best selves, and we're not in that place where we're learning how to leave a legacy, then we can't possibly feel fulfilled in life. And so that's important, because science shows that negative toxic thought leads to a lot of different negative conditions. Poor health, learning challenges, anxiety disorders, and addictions are all linked to negative toxic thought. On the flip side, science also shows that positive, hopeful thought leads to improved health, increased learning challenges, anxiety, the ability to overcome difficulties, and out-of-the-box thinking. And so it's really important to be able to focus our mindset on positive things and how we can get through and be resilient in uncertain times in order to be able to have those things. The good news is that you're not, how you think is not who you are. How you think is just a matter of the realities that you believe. And so you can take complete control over that. And so we're going to talk about that. It's based in a science called neuroplasty, and neuroplasty has been even more studied over the last several years, because it's proven that the brain has the ability to reorganize itself and change how we think. And that has tremendous power to break off those toxic thoughts, which breaks off the negative consequences of those toxic thoughts. But it's all rooted in perspective. It's all a matter of perspective. So when you look at this picture, I want you to kind of pay attention to what's the first thing you see. Some of you are going to see a gold goblet first. Some of you might see two older people looking at each other. Others might see a lady sitting in the back of within a doorway. And then others might see two people sitting playing a guitar with sombreros. Some of you might actually see all of that at once. What this picture represents is how our brain works. We don't always see the whole picture. In fact, most of the time we don't see the whole picture. And in fact, and usually if you do see the whole picture, you've probably trained your brain to look for it. And so this is how our thoughts work. Our experiences come in, and it filters through our past memories that say this experience is good or bad. And based on how you're seeing that picture, you might only see part of the picture. And so you're going to make your decisions based on that partial skewed reality. And so there's 15 most common perspective distortions. So these are the 15 greatest ways that we only see part of that picture. So I just want you to look through the list quickly in this amount of time. We're not going to take time to go through each of these, but I want you to take the time to just recognize one that might be coming up, especially right now in this time when there's a lot of uncertainty. What's one of those things? For me, magnifying the effect of things was a big thing for me. When Rob passed, all of a sudden, I found that I had a hard time making decisions. And that used to always be my greatest strength. So it was surprising for me that I wouldn't be able to make decisions suddenly. And what I realized was I was magnifying the effect of things. All of a sudden, I felt like I had a lot of decisions coming my way. And I was uncertain. I wasn't sure of myself. I wasn't sure of others. And so I suddenly started to magnify the effect of making decisions. And so that shut down my ability, which actually has always been one of my greatest strengths. And so that's a great example of how you can have a strength. You can go to all the classes you want and build a strength, but it can get shut down if you have the wrong mindset around it. And so these are kind of the most common things, but what we're going to be focusing on today is just kind of recognizing some of the ways that that you can recognize those skewed perspectives. And so the first way is recognizing your heightened emotions. We all have emotions. Emotions are good. They're like a dashboard. They tell us if something's wrong or they tell us if something's right. Where we start to get a skewed perspective comes in when we have heightened emotions. So particularly those heightened negative emotions like anger or rage or fear or frustration, right? But at the same time, there could be heightened emotions where we're overly positive about something, or we're overly excited about something and we're not able to see a full reality. And so when you have those heightened emotions come up, it causes you to only see part of the picture, like we were looking at the picture earlier. And the thing that's key with emotions is science has proven that there's resonant frequencies tied to each emotion. And really, there's two core emotions. You have fear, which is tied to negative emotion, and you have love, which is tied to positive emotion. And fear and any of those related emotions gives off a lower frequency, which is connected to those toxic things that we talked about earlier, the health challenges, the learning challenges, the ability to be able to be resilient. Whereas on the flip side, any of those emotions tied to love, happiness, excitement, joy, those all have higher frequencies within our body, which are tied to those more positive, glass is half full kinds of things related to improved health and the ability to solve problems. And so if you can just pause every day and kind of take stock of your emotions and recognize when they're heightened or not, it will allow you to recognize when you're not seeing the full picture, which is one of the practical tips for being able to take control of your thoughts and bring those subconscious thoughts and make them more conscious. The other way is to look for blind spots. Now, blind spots, those are things you can't see, so those are harder to recognize, right? Because you don't know what you don't know. And because of that, you typically, if you have a blind spot, you have less understanding in that area. And you're going to lack awareness and even focus in that area. So it's a little bit harder to recognize, but there's some simple ways that you can recognize. The first is to just look around yourself, to get in the habit of when you're walking in the room, look for that whole picture. When you walk in the room, look for who are the people involved, what are the tasks at hand, or what's out of order, and then what's the system, the rules, or the structure. Or if you're dealing with a challenge internally, to just intentionally look internally and say, who am I? Who am I as a person outside of anything else? What are the roles I'm playing? And then who am I becoming in the future? Instead of just focusing on one or the other, or putting more focus on one or the other. The other way is just ask people, especially people who are trusted voices in your life, are going to be great ways to be able to recognize where your blind spots are. And then finally, assessments are a good way to do it. We actually have mindset assessments that we use in business and through coaching people to help them be able to recognize those mindsets. So I mentioned earlier that I struggled with all of a sudden I wasn't able to get up and make decisions after my husband passed. And that was surprising for me because it's always been my biggest strength. I took an assessment and was able to recognize right away I had built a belief system that said decisions were bad. And I couldn't trust people to make decisions. There was another indicator in there that was showing that I wasn't trusting people to come and help me. And so then that overwhelmed me and it shut down my ability to make those decisions. And so the biggest way you can reverse blind spots is to recognize them and then to start continually seeking feedback, because once you've recognized it, it's no longer a blind spot. So you don't have that excuse that you didn't see it. So then you can start embracing that. I embraced it. I didn't say, oh my goodness, I'm so good at solving problems. I said, oh, okay, there's something going on here. So let me be aware of it. Let me put people in my life that can hold me accountable to it. The next thing to look for is limiting beliefs. And unlike blind spots, limiting beliefs are things you tend to be aware of. They usually are formed from repeated good or bad experiences, but you haven't typically hardened your heart towards those yet, or formed opinions around them. With limiting beliefs, you tend to be more coachable. And so for me, I had a limiting belief around being able to let people in, because I'd had an experience about 10 years before where I was hurt by somebody, and I'd formed this belief system that people are going to let you down. And so I recognized that I had a hard time letting people in to help me. And so I was able to have people come alongside of me and help me to recognize that and to show me that not all people are going to let me down. And so ways that you can recognize those limiting beliefs are when you hear yourself say, I should, I can't, I won't, I never. Those are typically indications that there's some sort of limiting belief. A lot of times people grow up with certain phrases or limiting beliefs, so in my case, I'd kind of grown up with the belief system that if I want it done right, I need to do it myself. That's something I kind of heard over and over. And so that formed a belief system inside of me, even though consciously I didn't know that. Subconsciously, I was believing I need to get through this season on my own. And then the areas that are suddenly hard for you. So for me, it was suddenly hard for me to get up and get off go. It was hard for me to solve problems. And people were saying, something's up, Michelle, you're not yourself. And then finally, there's those areas where you latch on to things you're maybe good at because you can do them, but they're not the things you're the greatest at. And so there's some sort of limiting belief that's causing you to try to latch on to things you're good at and hold on to those and not seek out things you're great at. Once you recognize those limiting beliefs, the biggest way to reverse them is to stay coachable, to view life as a layered process. So to make sure that, you're constantly looking for small little changes. But really the two most practical ways is, number one, declare the opposite truth. So in my case, I spent 3 weeks declaring that problem solving was good, that I was good at problem solving, that I could trust people. And all of a sudden, one of my colleagues came to me and said, Michelle's back. What's going on? And I looked up and I said, wow, that's true. I've had an easier time making decisions. And I've had an easier time letting people in. So, of course, me being I love science and the psychology of things, I went ahead and took another assessment. And sure enough, those areas that had skewed limiting belief systems had changed again. And so it took a matter of 3 weeks of me declaring something that I didn't believe, and it was very uncomfortable looking in the mirror and declaring those truths. And I didn't even believe them as truths, but to see how my brain had shifted. The other practical way is when you're having a hard time believing something new, just use your non-dominant hand. Write with your non-dominant hand, use it to pick up things. What it does is it forces your brain to kind of be open to new possibilities. And so a limiting belief is the shutdown of possibility. And so that starts to open it back up. The last thing to look for is strongholds. Now these are buggers. Strongholds are hardened belief systems. They typically come from unresolved limiting beliefs, usually from a traumatic event. Because they've been hardened and because they're typically tied to some long-lasting belief system or some traumatic event, they tend to be reinforced by stories or lies that make it very, very hard to believe that something else could be true. And so the way you recognize those is through really looking at those heightened emotions, finding where you have a strong opinion about something, but you can't possibly see that there could be another truth. The times that you're saying never, no way, can't, or won't, or those times when you really have a hard time declaring the opposite truth. So like in my case, my stronghold really came in around being able to trust people, because when Rob passed, my subconscious said, see, people do let you down. Rob let you down. In my world, God let me down in my mind. And so it reinforced that I had to put that wall back up and not let people in because that story came out. Typically, our strongholds don't come out unless we're under some stress, but reality of being in uncertain times, we're in stress. And a lot of times we don't even recognize we're in stress because a lot of stress is processed at that subconscious level. And so it's really important here to get help with the strongholds. And so the biggest way is to intentionally schedule time every day with reflection time, to think about it, to be aware of it, to name what you're grateful for, particularly what you're grateful for in that area that you're trying to overcome the stronghold. But if you can't even possibly find anything you're grateful for, at least just declare what you're grateful for in life, because that'll open up your brain to being grateful for other areas, to make those declarations. But the biggest way that I see people reverse their strongholds is to learn from testimonies of others. Find other people who had the same struggle with you and hear their stories, and then teach it. I'm a teacher by nature. I'm a teacher and coach and consultant. And so anytime I'm struggling with something, I go find a way to teach it, to teach the opposite of what I'm trying to shift. Because when you teach something, that's when you come into the greatest level of learning. And so whatever you're having a hard time overcoming, go teach it. Go give back to others. Serve through your areas of fear. Serve through those areas that are causing the greatest level of anxiety. And then have accountability partners in your life, because strongholds, those are the ones where that story, it tries to creep up and say, see, I told you, you were stupid. You started to trust people, and now I'm showing you that you were let down. And so make sure you have people in your life. And so, those are really the key things that you can do on a practical level to take control of your mindsets and overcome, because it is the greatest, most powerful tool you have in your toolbox to make it through uncertain times. It is the one thing you have control over, is your mindset. And so I want to leave you with this. I want to leave you with the domino effect. This is the power of one small change. Did you know that that a domino can knock over another domino about 1.5 times its size? So if you were to take a 5 millimeter tall domino and stack that up with progressively larger dominoes, the 29th domino would have enough power to knock over the Empire State Building. So what I hope you leave with today around that is the fact that you don't have to take, I gave you a lot of information in a very short period of time. Just take one tip and try it, because you will create a domino effect that will start to help you implement other things down the road. People often tell me, Michelle, I've tried to change. I can't seem to get unstuck. I can't make change last. Oftentimes, change is hard to do on our own. Can you relate with that? If so, I want to give you some hope. Find other people, find other resources. There's so much power in working together in a community. And we have a 5-day free quick start guide to change your life. That's a community coming together to be able to be able to help you walk deeper through this process. And reach out, use some of the other sessions that are on this wonderful summit to be able to connect with other people, because that's one of the biggest keys to being able to change your mindset, is to be able to do it with other people. So I'm going to leave you with this. Don't let yourself say, I wish I would have. The night before Rob died, I came home late after speaking about mindset and intentional living. I loudly walked in, causing him to wake up, annoyed he went downstairs to sleep, angry, that heightened emotion that he didn't acknowledge me. I yelled, thanks a lot. I wish I would have simply said hello. I didn't get that opportunity to say goodbye to him because I was angry and I didn't see that I was only seeing part of the picture. Every day, I help leaders intentionally take control of their mindsets, make monumental change without regrets. I don't want you to leave your circumstances to chance. Now is the time to be intentional. Now is the time to take control of your mindset, the only thing you really can control. And now is the time to be unstoppable. So now is the time to be fabulous. Thank you.